Begin the current Daf Mesechus Kidushin Daf Mem Gimel. Begin the bottom and Beis Mabez, second line up at the bottom of the Yomid. But the Gemara is in the middle of a conversation now discussing the halach of shlichut v'avera. We said that we find generally ain't shlichut v'avera because divid avadim and avadim we're going to listen to, but there is an exception. Meila, the halacha is that you can be chayiv like we learn chet from truma that you can make a shliach. The question is, okay, why don't you learn from there shlichut v'avera? Yeah. That you could be machayiv the meshaleach. No, because you have two psukim teach the same idea. You have that of truma. You have that of Meila and you have that of Shlichus Yad. So the Gemara is going to ask and say, wait a second, that's according to Basil. What do you do with Bisham? Bisham doesn't learn the halacha of that pasuk Advar Pasha that you're using words to tell the shlich. He uses for the shlich for the person himself his own thoughts. According to that, Bisham would still have to learn out Shlich V'Aver from Meila. The Gemara is going to continue on that halacha that according to Bisham you only have one source of Shlich V'Aver, only from Meila. You don't have a Shlichus Yad. He doesn't learn that. You don't see anymore any shlichus. So he used devar for your own word. That's what the Gemara continues right now. Shlichus is sponsored by Kazik and Cheskel. Turn to Daf Chaim. Turn to today's Daf. So discussing today's Daf, like we said, the source in the Isser of Shchute Chutz, how that comes in. That's the next item, number 3, regarding in shlichus v'avera, that you cannot make a shlichus for avera purpose. 3 explanations in Shammai's opinion regarding the shluchat tzehar gets a nefesh. If you tell someone go, you hire a hitman to go kill someone. What's the halacha regarding the liability of the one who hired the hitman? That even they agree, if you tell an agent, say bal esa erva, I want you to go and have relations with that woman, or to eat this not kosher thing, that everyone agrees in that case that that guy's going to be chayiv, and not the one who sent him. So although Bisham might hold that when you hire a hitman, maybe you're going to be liable for hiring him, but when you're asking him to do something that he's going to get pleasure from, that everyone agrees that then you're not going to be chayiv the shaliach, you're going to hold the shliach responsible. The Gemara regarding the 2 different teachings, possibly different displays, that regarding Rav and Rav Shila, regarding if shlich nasa eid or ain't shlich nasa eid, could an agent become a witness? And Rav's opinion of Achibid in the Mammon is regarding halacha of monetary law. The halacha of Amavas Chaber Be'edim, Insach L'Par Be'edim comes up in the Gemara's discussion on the base. Someone lends his friend money with witnesses, you don't have to pay him back in front of the witnesses. So like we said in the previous daf, we said ain't shlich v'avera based on the Svar D'Rav D'Rav D'Rav. Who do you listen to? Now, there were 3 exceptions, which we're going to get to the third one right now. Based on Pesukim, there will say yesh shlichut v'aver. Spoke about Me'ilo, spoke about shlichus yad. Now the Gemara says, the second line up from the bottom of the Amid, on Membeis, had nichel Basil. So wait a second, the answer we just given the Gemara previously makes sense according to Basil, that you have 2 Pesukim teaching the same idea, that of Me'ila and shlichus yad. But Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, that he says this pasuk is b'machshava k'maisa. The word dvar pasha is teaching you your words, your thoughts are like an action, like you actually stretch out your hand. So then the Gemara continues, they love me no. You should learn that from Me'ila that there's shlichus v'aver because you don't have 2 psukim teaching the same idea. You don't have a shlichus yad that you see that it could be done with a shlichus. So the Gemara, mishum nava Me'ila is not the only pasuk. There's another halacha of tvicha mechira. When you steal something, Torah says you're going to be chayiv kefil if you're caught. You're going to have to pay double. If you slaughter or you sell it, you're actually liable for 4 or 5 times, depending if it's a sheep or an ox. Oh, that's those are 2 psukim teaching the same idea. Anytime you 2 psukim the same idea, you cannot learn that from that. As the Gemara explains, Me'ilo hadaman, like we said before, we learned the chet from truma that you could do it with shlichas. He says shlich levaver, and then says the Gemara tvicha mechir mahi. What's the halacha of slaughtering or selling? That's a makar. The pasuk says in Shmais. It says if a guy's going to steal and the b'tavach and he's going to slaughter or sell it. So it says the pasuk he's going to be liable for 4 or 5 times the amount of what he stole. Now, if the pasuk is comparing the slaughtering to the selling, you say ma mechira, just like selling. Obviously, you cannot do a sale. But if it's al yidei acher, has to be through someone else, meaning the thief sells it and the buyer buys it. Av tzvicha. So to the case of slaughtering, is al yidei acher? It's through someone else. Meaning, even if you had a shliach slaughtered for you, the ganav is going to be chayav for the payment of 4 or 5 times the amount. So you see that there's a halacha of shlichis ledvar aveda of your theft of tvicha mechira through ishliach. Or another source, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, a second source, he says oy. The word oy macharai, it says with tvacha oy macharai, is l'rabis l'shliach, is an extra word, and that's where it could have said with a vav, I, that means and, sometimes it means or. So the extra word oy teaches you to include a shliach. Or a third source, the Bechizkitana, the word tachas, when it says tachas ashar, that in place of the ox that you stole, or tachas aseh, which you could have said the word tachas once, tachas ashar ayaseh, saying the word tachas another extra time is extra to darshan and rabbis to include a shliach. If you point to shliach in place of you, that's the word tachas, tachtav, in place of to slaughter, there's 3 different sources al kabanim. The teacher, tvicha mechira, can be done through a shliach, but al kabanim you have 2 sources now teaching you the same idea. Right. So no problem. No. That's actually to the contrary. Actually, even if you learn, you can learn from two psukim. Everyone agrees that when you have three, that ain't malam, because the Torah is telling you now. Come on, if you said two times, one thing, but the shtayt mul, that means obviously every time you're going to start saying it. So then you cannot learn out from there, because if not, you should have said just two times or one time. So therefore, again, three different sources. But by tzvich mechir, you have the halacha of shlich d'avera. So therefore, you cannot learn out from that. Says Gemara, wait a second. There's according to the one who holds that we have two psukim saying the same adim. You cannot teach according to the one that says that when you have two psukim saying the same adim, what are you going to say over there? So the Gemara says, good question. You're right. Based on that, you can still learn now from the shlichus d'avera. But I'm going to bring you an explicit source that there's no shlichus d'avera. What's the source? Because the Torah reveals by the halacha of shchudichutz. Shchudichutz is that you're slaughtering a carbon out of the area where you're allowed to slaughter it. You went out of the area of the Beis Hamikdash and you're slaughtering it over here. What does the pasuk say in Yikra? It says, "Dam yichashiv leishahu." It's going to be considered as blood to that man. That man leishahu. Dam shafach for the blood that he spilled. What's that man? What's hahu? Hu v'lo shluchai. It's telling you explicitly that this aveira is only going to be for him and not for his agent. So you see. Ein shlich v'aver. So they must wait a second. You only have a source regarding when you slaughter a carbon out of where you're supposed to slaughter it. Where do you know the halacha by the entire Torah? Says the Gemara. What do you mean? The yalf b'shchudichutz. We'll learn out from this halacha of slaughtering a carbon out of where you're allowed to. Says the Gemara. Wait a second. At the yalf b'shchudichutz, instead of learning out from there that ein shlich v'aver, learn out from me'ilah and the halacha of tzvich mechira. That there is shlichus d'avera. Why would I learn it from there when I can learn it from there? We don't have three psukim. According to that madam, you would. According to Beis Hill, you do. According to Beis Shammai, you don't. No, those are all sources in tzvich mechira. All those pshatim are only sources in tzvich mechira. We have three different sources how we know tzvich mechira can be done through a shliach. Now that's a d'avera. So we have tzvich mechira, and we have meila. That's only two psukim. According to Beis Hill, you're right. You have three. We're asking according to Beis Shammai, only have two. So you have two. So, but you have another pasuk that says by shchudichutz that ain't shlich d'avera. But who said learn it from there? Learn it from there. It says Gemara, hadakas rachmana. No, I'll tell you why. Because the Torah says over there, it says again that man's going to be cut off. Now, Meinyan Gufa is not teaching us regarding the context that we said before that it has to be him and not a shliach, because I already know by shchudichutz hahu. Today, it must be teaching me extra to tell me entire Torah has this halacha that it's only him and not a shliach. Says Gemara, now. Okay, so we answered the question. The problem now becomes now we have to go back. According to the one that holds it, when you have two psukim to the same idea, that you cannot learn out from there. So the problem now becomes is that so we cannot learn out from Me'ilah and Tficha that the shlich d'avera, because they're teaching the same idea. And as Rashi explains, logic would tell us there's no shlich d'avera, because we're supposed to say the svara of you listen to the words of the master of Hashem and not to the words of the student. So if that's the case, according to that man the Amar, so hanihu hahu. So when it says b'shchudichutz hahu, my darshbu, what are you expounding from there? Meaning, you don't need to teach me shchudichutz in shlich d'avera, and you don't need to teach me l'chal Torah kula in shlich d'avera, because why would I think shlich d'avera? I can't learn that from Me'ilah and Tficha because the two psukim teach the same idea. And Svara would tell us that ain't shlich d'avera because Rav Divrei Talmud. If you tell me that generally you could learn that from two psukim, and you would learn that from Tficha Mechira and from Me'ilah. Therefore, I need the Torah to tell you to be mafkia from that by telling me shchudichutz hahu, and then say again hahu to teach the Chal Torah. Makes sense. But according to the other mandama, why do I need a pasuk? What am I going to do with the hahus now? I don't need it to teach me anymore that you cannot use a shliach. Of course, it's dvar there. So the Gemara says, right, according to that mandam, you have to learn other things from these ahus. Number one's coming to exclude if you have two people holding onto a knife and they're slaughtering, where they're going to be pater from the chatas of shchutechutz. That's saying hahu in the singular. Only when it's just you. When you're doing two people together, then you're not going to be chayiv. That's one hahu. The other hahu is to teach you, even when it's the guy himself, it's only when it's the whole him. Meaning, hu v'lo honest has to be him, but not when he was being forced, when he's being coerced. Hahu sounds like that, like Rashi says, b'haviyase, meaning in his conscious state where his mind is settled. And hu v'lo shagi, when he does it, not when he does it by mistake. Hu v'lo mutter, not when he does it when he's in error. So therefore, that's what we learn out from the two hahus. So the Gemara now goes back. What does the other one do? Because he already learns that from hahu to exclude ain't shlich v'avera. So the Gemara, the other one holds mehu hahu, meaning it could have said who. Who would have told us that? What's hahu? The extra hey is telling us this other set of drushes. The other mandama would say hahu like darsh. It doesn't darshan hu hahu, whatever. It's not. It's stylistic, and therefore that's where the conversation ends. But upon them, according to everyone, you see that ain't shliach l'dvar either because of svara, because anyways you cannot learn the two circumstantial same idea, ein malamdin, and there svara tells divir different type of divir shemin, or you learn it out actually from a miyud of hahu from shchut chutz, which explicitly tells you first in the context of shchut chutz, and then the general chotar kula that you cannot have a shliach doing your dvar avera. Then the Gemara asks and says further, what do you do with the following halacha? We learn the brayso. If someone says to his agent, I want you to go kill this person. Hu chayiv v'sholcha pater. Tanakama says that the hitman, the sniper, the mobster, he's chayiv. The one who sent him, who hired him, is going to be exempt. Shammai Azakan, Shammai the elder says, Mishum Chaga Navi, in the name of Chaga the prophet, Sholchav chayiv. No, the one who sends him is going to be liable. Shammai says, the pasuk in Shmuel Beis, that Nasan HaNavi was telling to David HaMelech, because he caused the death of Uriah, he says, you killed him with the sword of the people of Ammon. Now, says the Gemara, my time of the Shammai Zaken. What's the reason of Shammai Zaken? Because he holds, we have two psukim to the same idea you could learn that from there, and therefore as Rashi explains, he learns that from Me'ila and Tvicha, that there is shlich d'va'avera. It says hahu, by shchut d'chutz, that he darshans for something else. That he darshans, one is coming to exclude when two people are holding onto the knife together when they're shechting outside, and one's excluding honest. But he actually does not learn hahu like darish. He doesn't expound hu hahu. He only learns one drasha from it, and that one drasha of the hahus is to exclude the anus and to exclude two people doing it, and therefore he actually does not have a source of ein shlich l'vaver. The holds, yeah, there's going to be shlich l'vaver, just like you have a shlichus everywhere, and when you hire hitmen, that you're going to be liable, and therefore he disagrees with the Tanakama. That's one source. V'bay same, if you want, you could say that actually a different source. La'ilam, the truth is darish, that he does expound the hu hahus, and therefore you're right. We say that from shchut d'chutz we learn out that ein shlich l'vaver. So my chayv. So what does Beis Shammai mean when you say you hire a hitman, that the one who hires him is going to be liable? It's chayv in the shemayim. On the hands of heaven, obviously, you didn't actually kill or execute someone, but you hired someone to do that. Obviously, heaven's going to want to punish you. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Is that to say that the Tanakama who disagrees with Shammai Zaken holds film din shmam nami pater? How could that be? Why would in the hands of heaven they don't care that you hired a hitman to kill this guy? I'd rather say the Gemara, no, everyone agrees that b'dei shemayim you're going to be liable. The only question is, dina rabba v'dina zuta ikbenayu. The difference is, how big is going to be the judgment in Shemayim? According to Shammai, it's going to be in Shemayim a huge judgment, meaning a huge punishment, because you hired the hitman. According to Tanakama, you're not going to be punished so much like killing yourself, just like someone who was a grama, who caused someone to die. So that's everyone agrees. The only question is about how much are you going to be liable in Shemayim for hiring the hitman. That's the second interpretation. Of a third interpretation, you could say in Shammai Zaken and Shani Hasan. No, there it's different. You're right. Of course, generally in shlich l'avera, but there it's different because the Galei Rachman, the Torah reveals that Nasan HaNavi told to David, "You killed him in the sword of the people of Ammon." Harakta, you killed, is you see that shlich l'avera in the context specifically of murder. But either Tanakama, who disagrees, holds you're not going to be liable, would tell you, Hari Lacha, what do you mean? He was telling him that you are kecher b'nei Ammon. What does it mean, like the sword of the people of Ammon? Ma'acher b'nei Ammon, just like the sword of the people of Ammon, you don't get punished if the people of Ammon kill someone. Af Uriah Chiti, so to Uriah the Chiti, you're not going to get punished. To the contrary, he learns that from the same source that you're going to be exempt. My time, what's the reason? That he killed them, that he's not going to be liable for it, because Marid B'Malchus have him. Because Uriah Chiti was rebelling against the king, and the king's allowed to execute someone who's a Marid B'Malchus. They come alay because Uriah Chiti said to David HaMelech, a pasuk in Shmuel Beis, he told to David, "Va'adoini Yoyev," and my master Yoyev, which Rashi learns, that was his merid, that was rebellion. You cannot call someone the Adain, a lord, in front of the king. This brings different pshatim regarding what was the merida. He doesn't like that that was the merida. He brings from Rabbeinu Meir, the father of Rabbeinu Tam, that David HaMelech told him to go to his house to eat and drink, and he refused. He says, "Well, me, I went fighting, and I'm going to go home and rejoice," and he shouldn't have refused. Or some say the merida was that he first said Adoni Yoyev before he mentioned Melech David. But be that as it may, He said Adoni Yayev, and the Ger says Va'avdi Adoni, and the servants of my master, Alpanei Asad Chaynim, they're all on the field fighting. How am I going to go home to my home and to eat? Whatever. Akapanim, that was considered a merida, and therefore he was allowed to kill him. But again, he was not liable according to Tanakama, and therefore it's like the Chev B'nei Ammon, which is not liable. Now the Gemara explains Amar Rava. So there was three different interpretations. Rava says, based on the first interpretation, Imtim Slami, we're going to say that that Shammai says you're going to be chayiv when you hire a hitman. It's actually B'dini Adam. It's actually, yeah, you're going to be chayiv B'dini Adam in the courts, because there is a shlichut va'aver, because we learn it from Ilan Tficha, because the old Shnei Kisam Abam Kecha is Malamdin, and Hahu would teach her something else, like we said before, my oinus, when two people do it. So Savasham Shami holds Shnei Kisam Abam Kecha Malam two pesukim say you can learn out from that, and Hahu doesn't darshan the fact that it says who, meaning Hahu, and it could have said who to learn out two different drasha. It only learns a one drasha, and he excludes, like we said, oinus, and he excludes mut, and he excludes when two people do it. So he holds seemingly that there's shlichut va'aveira, and that when you hire a guy to do an avera, you and Mishlech is michayev. Okay, even if we'll go with that first out of the three pshatim, but still says Rava Moider Shammai Zaka would still agree in the following case. If someone tells his agent, say boilis erva, I want you to go out to the bar tonight. I want you to pick up someone. I want you to go ahead and this is what I'm asking you to do. Or I want you to go to this restaurant. You got to taste the shrimp. You got to taste this. And he tells him, okay, and he listens to him. Everyone is going to agree, even Shammai Zakan Shu Chayev. The guy who's doing the beer, the guy who's eating the shrimp is going to be Chayev. The Shalchapat, the guy who sent him, is going to be exempt. And the reason for this is because since the Shlich is having Hana in what he's being asked to do, because we don't find the whole entire Torah, you can't have that this guy was asked to go to this event or whatever this and that, and he's having pleasure, and that the one who sent him is going to be Chayev, and therefore even Shammai Zaken would agree that you're not going to say in that case the Shlich Levaver to be Meyaches, the Maisa to the Meshliach. There, since the pleasure, it's going to be automatically Meyaches to the Shliach. Right. So Taisa says, "I just Meila." If the Gibber says the Shlich, "Achal ki gezesh alek the Shlich leYadosh shayek there's a Chaim Meshliach." Why? Then the Meshchayvu. So Taisa says the Meila le Meshchayv Meshliach the Hanos Shliach. It's not the liability for El the Hagbaz the Shliach. The Miyad the Ag B'Shliach, the moment he picks it up, Kanye, but he's trying to Chaim Meshliach. But what the Re was Masubik was when you tell a Shliach, stretch out your hand to a jug of oil and have enough from the Sicha, from the anointing, or sit on these leathers of Hektish, or warm yourself up with these shearings of wool from a carbon oil, and the Shliach doesn't know that they're Hektish. And now he's having Hana, with the Meshliach B'Chayiv, like we said, Meila, would you say that no? So Taisa says that the reason why Meila is different because that happened the moment you picked it up. There are certain cases that the Re is Masupik regarding. Now the Gemara continues on this theme about Shlichus. Itmar Rav Amar Shliach Nasa Eid. So continue on to a new theme, but the concept of a Shliach, of an agent, he can become a witness. So whether we're talking about for Kidushin, whether someone that owed money sent to his creditor. So that shliach could combine with another single person to be two witnesses, or let's say two people were being sent. They together could go and testify regarding this thing. The shliach could become an aid. Rabbi Shloimy, they say no. In Yeshiva Rabbi Shloimy, they said ain't shliach has an aid. No, an agent cannot become a witness. So then where it explains my time Rabbi Shloimy, what's the reason of Yeshiva Rabbi Shloimy? Why could the shlichun not become an aid? If it's because the one who sent him did not tell the shliach, how will he be a witness for me? That can't be. If that's the case, so then let's say some guy is mekadosh a woman in front of two people. But he didn't say atem eda, you're my witnesses. You think that's not going to be Kidushin? But they saw. Rashi, it says the Gemara says you have to tell people you're my witnesses. Says Rashi, no, that's only by witnesses that you're admitting something in front of them. Because sometimes the person will admit to his creditor that he owes him $100 and say, yeah, you're right. He wants to quiet him till a later point in time, even though he doesn't really owe him anything. So therefore, the guy who's listening cannot testify and say, he admitted in front of me, until he says, guys, you're my witnesses. But in general, it wouldn't apply. Of course, it's going to be a Kidushin in front of two people, even though it's say, you're my witnesses. So what's the problem? Why does the Rabbi Shila hold that the Shliach cannot become an aid? Why can't it become an aid? Ella rather says the Gemara like this. Rav says a Shliach can become an aid. Why? Because actually, it's different Girsois and Rashi how to translate what the Gemara is saying, but it actually supports the idea of the testimony when this thing was being done through the aid. So when the shlichus was done through the aid, it actually strengthens what the guy is trying to say. So, what do you mean? I did it. Of course, I can testify regarding it. Why wouldn't the shlich be able to become an aid? I can testify that's the truth because I did it myself. Rabbi Shloimy, the yeshiva Rabbi Shloimy said, no, ain't shlich nas aid. No, he's just saying that's what Kabul Chaim, for sure that we're wondering whether Machlekes could become an aid. Vada can be aid. If anything, it makes it even stronger. You don't need that, but because we see the other man, Rabbi Shloimy says, no, ain't shlich nas aid cannot become an aid. Why? Because given the since the master says shluchim kamaisa, the Asian person like himself, so fascinating. You have like Kigufi, it's like himself. Now we know that a Baal Din cannot say testimony for himself, so Mamash becomes like him. So I mean, it's not really him; it's someone else. But that's the concept of we say how weit. That's what we say. The Boy Nishlam, we do his mitzvah, shluchim kamaisa, mamash like an agent. You're like kamaisa, you mamash like the guy himself, and then you cannot testify because you're mamash like the guy himself. That's the machlekes between Rav and the Beir Reb Shila. But the Gemara asks Mesa, the Gemara asks on Rav in the following brisa. Brisa says, if someone says to three people, isha, go ahead, I want you guys to get me engaged to that woman. So what do? The three guys, the crew they go to the girl. Okay, one guy will be the agent, he'll carry the ring, two guys are the witnesses, and that's how they can make a Kidushin with this guy. That's how Beishami holds. Some say, no, they're all agents, and since they're all agents, an agent cannot become a witness. Says the Gemara, Ad can the whole machlekes b'sham still was only by three people. By two people, everyone's going to agree that no, that you cannot have a shlich become an aid. It's just that b'sham holds they're not all shluchim. One is shlich and two are aidim. Okay, so no, all shluchim can become an aid. But if they would that to be two, everyone agree that okay, one of them is a shlich, so you're not going to have the aidim over here. What do you mean? Didn't Rav say that the shlich will become an aid? Says the Gemara, you're right. He's not like these two Tanoim. He's like a following Tana that we learned in the Brisa. Nussen says, B'Shamay say, Shliach ve'ed echad. The agent and one witness could testify on something. They say, no, Shliach v'shnei aid. No, you have to have an agent and two witnesses. You can't have one Shliach and one aid. You got to have a Shliach and two aids. Says, wait a second. How does that help us? For Rav B'Shamay, B'Sil is still contradicting him. He's like, B'Shamay that holds that the Shliach could become an aid. So the Gemara Eipuch, you have to switch around. That it's actually Beis Hill is the one who says you can have a shliach and aid echad, where the shliach has become an aid, and Bisham is the one who holds not, and therefore it's not difficult. That's who Rav could hold like. Now, parenthetically, the Gemara says Rav Masni Ipchi actually learns machlekes Amaram the other way around. He says Rav Ama Ein Shliach Nas Aid. It was Rav who said that shliach cannot become aid. Rabbi Shila, they said the shliach Nas Aid that actually no, it's a shliach become an aid. Different gear size in that Gemara. And what's the hilchas halacha is shliach Nas Aid. The shliach could become an aid. Like we said, if anything, it makes it even better that he could be the witness and testify regarding what he did. Now, based on this, Amar Rav Nachman says the following halacha. Amar L'Shnayim, someone says to two people, go, I want you to get me engaged to that woman. They're his agents, and they're his witnesses. Because a shliach is not the aid. And the same thing applies to divorce. If he sends a get to his wife through two people, it's the same thing. They will be his agents, and they will be his witnesses. And continue to base. And so too says Rava, same thing applies to monetary law. That is, that if he sent a debt he owes to the lender through two people, they will be his shluchim and they will be his witnesses. So the Gemara says that I have to tell you this halacha in all three contexts of Kidushin, קידושין, and Dinei Mamanis. Why? As the Gemara says, yes, mean Kidushin, have we said this halacha only regarding Kidushin? Oh, B'Shem de Lemester Kasi. They're coming to make her forbidden on everyone else. So like Rashi says, why would they make her forbidden on their own selves and on the whole world falsely? It makes sense for us to believe them, because if anything, they're making it harder for themselves. I'm like, Gerishim, but regarding divorce, maybe we shouldn't believe them. But we have to be concerned that maybe they laid eyes on her and they want her. So they're saying, oh, we divorced her, when maybe they really didn't. So we cannot believe the shluchim to be the Eidim themselves, and therefore they would be disqualified. So we have to say, no, we believe them there also. Now, Gerishim, as we said regarding divorce, we would say, okay, the reason why we believe the shluchim to say Eidim, two people can't marry the same woman. So how could they be invested? Who's going to be getting the girl? I want, you want. So since they're two people, we could assume they're not lying. Regarding monetary, that's the third case. We could say, what do you mean? They said that they went and they gave the money to you. What are you joking? They divided the $1 million between themselves. You take 5, I take 5. We'll just testify that we gave it back to the guy. So I would say maybe we wouldn't believe them. We have to say that no, they're also the shluchim could become an aid in all three cases. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Micah Savar, what does Rav Nachman hold that he said that yes, that also by monetary law that the shlich could become an aid? As the Gemara explains what the question is. If he holds the following halacha, if someone lends his friend money with witnesses, you have to pay it back in front of witnesses, meaning a guy's not believed to say, oh, I paid back. If that's the case, how do we believe these two guys to say that they gave the money to the lender, but hani nagim be'edus ninu? This is what's called, they have a bias to the testimony, which we don't usually believe people that have a bias to the testimony, because what's their nagia? What's their relationship? Because the i'amri, if they say loy parane, if they say that we didn't pay him, because if they don't say that we're going to testify that the lender took the money from us, so then the borrower is going to tell them, okay, paruni, pay me back what I gave you the money, because sometimes he gives them the money with witnesses, and as the Bach adds on the words, if he holds someone lends his friend money with witnesses, in circle for you don't have to pay back with witnesses. Then why do you need witnesses in the first place? You don't need witnesses. The guy could just say, I paid you back. So how is this case of shlich nasa eid by din imam? If you have to pay back in front of witnesses, they shouldn't be believed. And if you don't need to pay back in front of witnesses, we don't need them. Says the Gemara, the truth is, Ksavar, Rav Nachman holds, if someone lends his friend money with witnesses, you write, does not have to pay him back with witnesses, and the Bach adds on words over here too, the Amar, and if he says, Ano praticha, I paid you back, achanami. Truth is, you're right, the guy himself, the bar would be believed to say he paid back the lender. However, what's different over here is, what are we talking about over here, says the Bach, the Amalei said in praticha de shliach, I paid you back, not myself, through an agent. Oh, now for that, you have to have witnesses, because how do you know it was done? You yourself, you could say you're believed, but you don't know you had a shliach. So you have witnesses that the shluchim did it. Now the Eidim Nami, the witnesses also, says the Gemara like this. Since they could say that we gave the money back to the borrower, to the one who sent us, and they wouldn't even have to take an oath because there's no partial admission. They're totally denying. They're saying we gave you back the money. You never paid it back to the lender. We gave it back to you. So because they could tell the borrower, we gave you back the money, they could say we paid up the lender, and their words are going to be valid in the medium of testimony because they're not negei be'edus. Why they're not negei be'edus? Because they could get off the hook by just saying to the borrower, we gave you back the money, because they're not moedim mikzas, they wouldn't be chayv shvuah. So therefore, they're believed to say we gave it to the lender. Now, says the Gemara, but what happens interesting now is like this. So that's the halacha of Rav Nachman. They said is that we're going to believe the shluchim, they're going to become edim, they can testify because they're not negei be'edus. We had thought that negei be'edus, where we had said, what do you mean? If you mal b'chaver, you have to pay back with edim. So the negei be'edus said, no, you don't have to pay back with edim. But in this case, it's different because the shluchim it's being paid back through shluchim, and we would have thought to say that okay, now they have to swear. Say no, they don't have to swear because they're not negei be'edus, because they could get off the hook by saying we gave it back to the borrower. They could just as easily say now we gave it to the lender. But says the Gemara, there's a ramification of the hashta. Now, current days it's different the halacha. Why? Because you don't have any more than just the biblical halacha of moedim mikzas. When you totally deny, it used to be that you weren't chayv b'nei shvuah. But now the rabbis came along, they're talking about shvuas hasis. Even if someone does not admit the partial of the claim, the sages still imposed upon him an oath. From this point now, even if we hold that if someone lends his friend money with witnesses, that you don't have to pay him back with witnesses, even so, the shluchim would be negei be'edusa. Because if they say, we give the money back to you, the borrower, they would have to swear a shvuas heses. So therefore, now that they're testifying that the lender took the money from them, is only to let them off the hook from the oath they would have to give to the borrower that they give the money back to him. And as Rashi explains, they would rather cause a monetary loss to the lender by saying we give the money to him than swearing falsely to the borrower that we paid you back, which they would be chayv shvuas heses. Because even though that they're suspect regarding money, that they would say they would cause a loss to the lender, they're not suspect on an oath. So therefore, by monetary law, currently we would not say Rav Nachman's halacha. We would not say that the shluchim could become edim because they are negei be'edus. Now, since they're not going to be valid witnesses, so the halacha is like it's brought in Masechta Shavuos of Medalman Beis, that it's going to be similar to a case of what's called the storekeeper on his ledger. That the halacha is like this, explains the Gemara. So what happens is, Mishtabi Hani Edim, you're right, these witnesses, these shluchim, would have to swear, Yehavnele, that they gave the money to the lender, and then they would be exempt from the one who sent them, because they swear that they gave the money to the lender, because the borrower believed them, that they could swear to him that they gave over the money, because he gave the money to them, and he's obviously believing them. So they could just swear they gave the money to the lender, but they would have to swear. But the lender says, I don't believe these guys. Who are they? Why should I believe their oath? And therefore, the lender swears that he didn't take the money from them. The bar is going to have to pay the money to the lender. So he's actually, if they're lying, he's going to have to pay double. Meaning, the shluchim swear that they give the money to the lender. The lender swears that he didn't get the money. And then that's like the halacha where a guy sends his workers, he tells the storekeeper, hey, do me a favor, give my workers, steaks on the house because they worked hard today. And then the workers say, he never gave a steak. And the storekeeper says, I gave them a steak. He's chayav to both of them because of that he believed him. And therefore, that's the same case over here, where ultimately that the shluchim will have to swear, and because we don't believe them just to become edim. And at the same time, the lender is going to swear he did not get the money is going to collect from the bar. Now, going back to the halacha of the Mishnah all the way back, which we were speaking about this halacha of ha'ish mekadesh. So just like a man can be mekadesh, and we said b'lei b'shluchai, ha'ish mekadesh is bita, so too a man can be mekadesh his daughter. So relating to the halacha of the Mishnah, the Gemara says, "Now we're learning the Mishnah Masechta Gittin that says naira hamayrasa." If you have a girl that's in puberty, 12 and 12 and a half, which Rashi says same thing is regarding a minor, let's say 11 or 10 years old. The reason why we're having this machlekes by a naira is only because we want to tell the strength of Rabbi Yehuda, who talks about still the power of the father, how strong the father is, even though she's a naira. But the same thing would apply to a katana. But when you have a girl that's 12 and a half that's engaged, hiva via, says the Tanakama, either her or her father, Makam Nazgita can receive the get. Now, she can receive her get because she's an adult. She's already over 12, she already had a bas mitzvah, and she has a yad. And the Torah says, V'nas b'yada. Her father, because the Torah is mazaketim to receive her Kidushin when she's a naira, and the pasuk appears, V'yatza b'haisa, divorced to getting engaged. Now, Rashi points out, this is specifically because she was only engaged. She was married, even if she's still a naira, even though a Kanana, it would only be her, not her father, because the moment she gets married, the father has no reshus over her. But she's engaged. A naira hamayrasa, either her or her father could receive the get. I mean, he says, no, it can't be. You cannot have two hands meriting in the same body of the element. Rather, only the father could receive her get, and not the girl herself, even though she's an adult. Another halacha says the Mishnah, and any time the woman cannot protect her get, she cannot be divorced, as Rashi explains what the chiddush is, even through her father. Because if she cannot watch her get, she's a mentally deranged woman. And Rabbi Shloimy says, "V'shilchim be'isai is only if it's a woman that you send away, she doesn't come back." This shaita, didn't I send you away? What's this to do? Nacham, will you come back in? She doesn't realize. The Gemara in Yevamos Daf Yomi says, then that's not going to be a valid gerushin. Now, the Gemara qualifies the machlekes. It says, "Kamachlekes the gerushin," just like Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakhama disagree regarding gerushin, regarding if it's her and her father or just her father when she's a naira. Regarding Kidushin, meaning from Gerushin we learn regarding Kidushin that the Rabban hold if she makes herself engaged when she's over bas mitzvah, she says, Tati, I had my bas mitzvah, I found my boyfriend, we're getting engaged. According to Tanakama, she'd be engaged. According to Rabbi, no, she's not engaged. You're still a naira. I have control over you and not yourself. Rabbi Shloimy, he says, no, it's not true. Machlekes the Gerushin, machlekes is only regarding a divorce. That's machlekes if it's both her and her father or only her father when she's a naira. Like a Kidushin, but for getting engaged, the Ve'akol, everyone agrees, you're right, it's only going to be her father and not her, even though she's bas mitzvah. What's the reason of Rabbi Yechon according to Rabbanan? Chayrish Shlokish makes sense. Why is it differentiating between Kidushin and Gerushin? The pasuk appears, says the Gemara, there's a difference. By Gerushin, by divorce, the machnasis atzma, where she's bringing herself in by receiving her get, l'rshus avia, to her father's domain, because what happens is is that she's still a naira and she was only engaged. So when she's getting the get, she's going back to her father's domain. So we say, okay, her father is pleased that she receives the get because she's coming back to him. So we'll say that he's okay with her getting the get. It's going to be get. So that's bein hi bein avi. That's going to be whether her or her father. But Kidushin, we're going to get engaged. The tati's crying. You say, I'm going to miss you, my Rachala. Oh, you're going to leave us, whatever. She's being removed from his domain. Then even Rabbi Yochanan says that even Rabban would agree, Aviyah v'lahi, it's only going to be her father who could do it, and not her, because it's removing her, and then he's not pleased with her doing it, and he has the right, if it's only going to be him and not her. Thank you for any time.